Greetings, good people. Welcome to Who Knows Is Just Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Kyle. Thank you for listening and fitting me into your day today. On today's episode, I'm going to be delving into the concept of masculinity. I'm going to call this episode Rediscovering Masculinity because it's a concept that has been talked about and rehashed and drugged through all kinds of things over the last, I guess, decade at least, if not longer. So I want to try to get into this topic quite a bit. Joining me on this conversation is my man, Tony Aldridge, from way back in the day. We've been friends since, we've been playing baseball against each other in middle school in the 90s.
Back in the day, I ain't like you.
Yeah, that's right. We had rivals in baseball, low key. But then once we were in high school together, been best friends since then. We've been each other's best man and all that for weddings and whatnot. So always lived close by too for the most part. So yeah, definitely one of the best friends I've ever had. And for those who listen to the show, when I mentioned a friend of mine and doing a workout challenge, trying to just at least exercise every day and working out together, it was with Tony, for almost a year we were working out once a week together, and we were trying to motivate each other to at least be active as many days in a week as we could.
Yeah, man, that was get me up off my butt.
Yeah, man.
I be sitting around nowadays, man. That's what it is.
Hey, it's all good. So anyway, so Tony, say hello to the people, and how do you just share with everybody how you identify or anything else you'd like to share about yourself?
Man. So what's good people? How do I identify? I am a cisgender black male, indigenous to the Maryland DMV area.
True. Father
of two. The last one's cooking. He's on his way here. So
that's what's up. Congrats.
That's my excuse for the cutting the workouts.
That's real.
Found out that we were finally bringing the third one into the world. So
indeed.
Finally a boy. I've been in the house. Female-dominated house for the last, we've been together a while.
It has been a while.
You've been married for 8 years.
Are we going to get into how that even happened?
I mean, if you want to, I don't care. It's all your fault.
Yeah, it is my fault because you were the best man at my wedding. Megan did my hair for my wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And although we all knew each other in high school, It was at my wedding where the sparks were rekindled. And y'all marriage is the only one that's still going.
I mean,
and I'm thankful for that's great.
But see, that only works when you do your hoeing up front. You understand? You gotta come into it hoeing and fall into forever.
Fair. See,
that's what I think.
That's fair. All right, so all of this is fair game because and one thing I always say in the beginning of the show, especially for a new guest, even though I know you've heard the show is called Who Knows Is Just Life. The premise of the show is I'm still learning. I don't know everything. I probably know nothing. And this show is really just a public expression of that learning process. So I'm going to say something that I disagree with. I'm going to say something that you disagree with. I'm going to say something that listeners disagree with. And that's just part of it. And it's just about bringing...
Contradict yourself 3 times over the course of 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the point. Works.
Yeah, no, but so yeah, it's just about learning and exposing myself and listeners to just that raw learning process as we go through life. Because at the end of the day, we're coming to life as we've experienced it thus far, and life is coming to us, and we just have to process in real time and try to make the best of it, and try to grow and learn every day.
That was deep.
Shut up. So anyway, when I have a guest, I also like to just check in on you. So how are you feeling today, this week? How are you doing right now?
Man, I'm burnt. This is like recovery for the day, honestly. Like I'm glad we had the opportunity to do this because I needed to put this on my schedule. I needed for us to be hanging out to be on my schedule.
Yeah.
Because you get so caught up in being an adult, being a parent, being a spouse, being what you need to be as a family man, that you can easily lose yourself in it all.
Yeah.
So, being a provider, so, work is, it can be a hectic thing.
Yeah.
You already know. I'm not going to get into the details here, but my work life. So
yeah.
It's like, I've been slammed the last couple weeks really.
Mm-hmm.
So started off like a busy day, but it kind of mellowed out, eased into the groove. So by the time I got to this point, I'm looking forward to this. So
yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, I mean, and all that is really all that contributes to the topic, which is masculinity, because we're both parents. You're you're in a healthy marriage. I'm divorced, and
I was just laughing at how you said like in a healthy marriage. You think so?
Yes.
You know that?
I
Nah, this must be.
yes, I think so. Yes, for sure.
You know what? On the real, I do think I'm in a healthy marriage because of all of the issues we deal with.
Yeah, and the fact that y'all have worked on and been able to navigate those and
continue to.
Yeah, and
That's my thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, and so we talk about it. We probably talked about this since high school, even for real. Like, if we really take it all the way back, but it just seems that so much has happened with masculinity in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years. It just seems maybe longer. It just feels like it's just been a much more of a hot topic, like escalating as a snowball.
It like hits home, I think, when every generation comes of age. So like the millennial generation is. The reason why it's been a hot topic like the last 10 years is because really the last 10 years has been the beginning of that experience as a parent for a lot of people in our generation. So as we transition and move into that space, I mean, it's what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Let's start off with our own definitions of masculinity. And then I pulled up the Webster's definition, and I think it's hella lame. Yeah, so let's start with you. How would you define masculinity?
I would define masculinity as the unique elements of a human experience that are exclusive to the male gender. It is entirely encompassing of the experiences, the ideologies, the perspective, all the things that shape and round what a male is.
Now, what if I were to challenge you a little bit in the sense that male is a sex and man is a gender, and how those can be not necessarily aligned? How like,
yes,
right?
I would agree with you, but again, that's a whole nother level and layer in this conversation, right? So, in order to even really delve into that element of this conversation, you first have to properly define the vocabulary you're using, right?
Yep.
So, based upon the definition you just provided, the things I'm describing are a combination of the gender that is male, right? Mm-hmm. Combined with elements of the historical experience that is man.
Okay.
And there is a certain connectivity and divergence at the same time based on the way I interpret it, which is I don't really find to be common. Like, I believe in the gray areas. The way I perceive life in general is that people spend more time living out of defined black and white spaces and define the gray areas much smaller than what I believe they are. I believe most things are gray area and few things are black and white.
Yeah, that is you. That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, man.
So I'm gonna give on the dictionary app on my phone, I guess it's Merriam-Webster, I don't even know. The definition 1A is male. 1B is having qualities appropriate to or usually associated with a man, which doesn't tell us anything.
Right.
It just tells us that's what men do.
Especially given the shift in society, right? I like, go back to the definition real quick.
Having qualities appropriate to or usually associated with a man.
Appropriate and usually associated with are both statements associated with character norms or social norms, right? So appropriate is relative to what your society deems appropriate.
That's real.
Right? Yeah. Same thing with usually, what is it? Usually something associated with, usually connected to.
Appropriate to or usually associated with a man.
Yeah. So appropriate to or usually associated with. Usually in what context? What civilization do you exist in that associates and defines what properties are male or associated with the man?
With a man, yeah. Yeah, I kind of like didn't like the definition because it was so bland and vague. But I guess it's appropriate because of that. I guess it kind of allows for that.
But it goes into the point I'm making, right? Which is
gray.
It's real easy to say, oh, that's black and white. The first one is black and white.
Yeah.
Second one is real gray.
Right. I guess for me, the term masculinity is complicated, and I guess for me, I've grown to learn that the difference between sex and gender, sex being biological parts for the most part, you know, like male, female parts based on biology, and then gender being, you know, how you present yourself and kind of the energy that carries you through the world, that you navigate the world with. And I think it's if folks are being honest, everybody has masculine and feminine energy within them.
Absolutely.
And it's just a matter of how much of that energy comes out in it, and in what way does that energy come out, which dictates whether or not you are more likely to be considered male or masculine, or
how it is defined within the society upon which you exist in.
Yeah, and I know for us in this, you know, patriarchal, white supremacist capitalist society.
Oh, you said the P word.
I did. You know, that, like, obviously we're dealing with the imposition of patriarchy right now.
The Western civilization, American interpretation of what masculinity is or isn't, as it has been historically defined in this wonderful country that is United States of America. God bless America, no place else.
Yeah, that. So yeah, and I mean, you know, I'm definitely not a scholar of other cultures to any degree of you know, depth or specificity, but I'm aware of other non-binary ways of thinking about gender. I know, you know, in many Native nations, there's the idea of two-spirit, and there's other ways of allowing for the diversity and the range of gender, and it's not necessarily a binary thing as we think of it in this culture. But so yeah, I don't know, that's what I've learned to this point. Of course, I probably said something wrong, so if anybody listening can correct me and help me better articulate that, I'm open to it.
But the realest interpretation I've ever heard of how to interact or how to navigate the world at large when it comes to sex and gender fluidity and all the elements of that type of interaction, or those types of interactions, I should say, is the ideology of being honest with your questions and recognizing that you may offend while intentionally trying to not offend, and also be willing to reconcile where you've fallen short. So like, and truth be told, the argument that I've heard, right, in different conversations, podcasts, videos, other things I've internalized over time, is that most people are receiving of when you're coming from a genuine place. Like, if you're genuinely looking to understand something, most people tend to be receiving of your ignorance, because they recognize that you're not trying to project, you're trying to understand.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's a human experience. A lot of people miss out on the basic human experience that is trying to connect with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And hopefully this show conveys that energy of just literally trying to learn and navigate this and do so in a non harmful way. Hopefully that comes off.
Absolutely. And recognizing that it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the part that bothers me about a lot of these conversations. People feel like in your attempt to be a good person, you struggle with the idea that you probably in some ways haven't been. Or you may have offended somebody, whether intentional or not. You have done something wrong to somebody. So being able to accept and accept that with the intent to reconcile that really bridges the gaps in relationships and period. And I think a lot of people miss that.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that's true.
And honestly, for me, it's a cornerstone ideology in life. So I always like for people to understand where I'm coming from when I give whatever perspective, opinion I give, because intent matters to me. It's one of the most pivotal and it's one of the most significant aspects of life, intentionality, because I don't care who you are, you're going to do wrong stuff and you're going to do right stuff. But what were you trying to do? Where were you coming from?
What about the whole road to hell is paved with good intentions?
It sure is, but how do you know which way you're going unless you actually take the path? I mean, you can course correct if you're actually assessing what you're doing. So I do agree that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but people who lack the ability to look back and reflect on where they've gone lack the ability to be able to refocus and realign themselves to be back on the right road.
Yeah, I feel you.
Which is another thing we don't do as a society or push people to do is self-assessment, self-reflection.
Now we just cancel people.
I know, right? I mean, humility is such a lost art in society.
Yeah. So let's kind of bring it back to masculinity, because I know one of the things if people think about the word masculinity these days, there's a
toxic masculinity.
Right. I was about to say there's a preceding term that usually is there first. Toxic masculinity. So.
Which is a thing.
Yes, it is a thing.
It is a thing.
So, and actually, and I know we both read Bell Hooks' A Will to Change, and I like how she used the term patriarchal masculinity, which correctly places the blame where it should be, and it also, because I was going to ask you how you receive the word toxic masculinity or the phrase toxic masculinity, because I feel like a lot of men, and you've probably seen this either with your friends or with friends or whoever, but like a lot of men get defensive when they hear that term. So how's your response to that term in general, either from your own life and with friends?
So I feel like the term toxic masculinity, when spoken, doesn't mean, like I align with the ideology, right? There are absolutely traits and characteristics and manifestations that I see on a regular basis that I would associate with the ideology of toxic masculinity. The only time it elicits a negative response from me is when I see the application and I'm concerned that the context is not necessarily limited in scope, but it's being used broadly in a context that has nuance possibly. So then it goes back to the whole, well, wait a minute, let's figure out why we are where we are and why we're saying what we're saying, because maybe y'all are using the same term, believe in the same term from an ideological standpoint, but the application that you're looking at may not be the same.
Do you have an example of that?
Let me think. Do I have I can't say that I have a specific example right now, and I hate it when I listen to podcasts or people talking
like, I don't even know,
and they generalize.
That's all
like
good.
I'd have to go back into the depths of my social media experience and go looking. I've had classmates, right? Because so I went to Howard, right? So
every Howard grad has to say it.
HU, you know, not the Institute of Technology. I went to Howard, and I loved interacting with women at Howard. And I don't even mean that like, it ain't even just the social element. Of course, we all were social on some level. But like, I love information. I love understanding, right? So being able to experience and interact with so many different women of different backgrounds, culturally, personally, hearing their perspectives, their understanding about their experiences in life. I loved it all. So the catch is, you move forward in life, and then those interactions and those conversations are a lot more limited. So you're just looking at social media posts and those kinds of elements, and you're left like somebody made a comment about something being sexist or off or this and that, and you're just kind of like, I don't know. I could see how I could agree with what XYZ was. I could see where it might be offensive, but I'm curious as to like the vigor behind your position as a woman on this particular issue.
Yeah. I think for me, the issue of toxic masculinity and patriarchal masculinity, I think it's cleared up. It's clarified for me, at least, if we contextualize it in the patriarchal sense of domination. And
right.
Given that patriarchy is designed to have men dominate women, and that's done violently, it's done economically, it's done in a myriad of ways. Psychologically, yeah. There's just a number of tactics that are utilized to reinforce that stratification.
Right.
And so I feel like that term. So I know that I've had friends that have been like, oh, toxic masculinity is not bad, men, and they just puff up their chest,
Right.
and they feel like, oh, like
that always makes me laugh, because I'm always like, you're right. Toxic masculinity is specific. Masculinity is a thing unto itself.
Yeah.
When you put toxic in front of it, you have created an entirely new field. So what are you getting defensive about?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm thinking back about that terrible definition that I hated a minute ago, and I'm actually seeing its
Application.
Yeah. It's
applicably vast. It's
yeah, because basically what it says is, you could even say, so it basically said, that are masculine, the traits and characteristics that are appropriate for basically male-bodied people, for usually male-bodied people.
I like the usage of appropriate in that context, because when you look at the ideology of toxicity, right, there's a lot of people say, right, a little bit of everything isn't bad for you, but too much of some things will kill you.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of where I apply toxic masculinity. It's not any singular element of it. It's when you dominate your existence with this particular element or this particular thing.
Yeah.
When that becomes the sole driver or defining element of you,
yeah,
is when it becomes toxic.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point, and I think that it also is toxic when I think the toxicity comes from its harm.
Yeah.
And that harm is obviously geared towards women.
Yeah.
So there's that, but then there's also the homophobic and transphobic elements to it, right?
Yeah.
And there's also the harm to men, which is less popular to say, but I think it's fair to say, Bell Hooks makes this point too, that that patriarchy harms all of us.
Absolutely.
And an example I have is there was a man I worked with who was in his 60s, who could have been my father. And there were things that he struggled with at work, just whether it was, a certain task or something, like he would forget a procedure or whatever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that serious, but like, if he felt like he couldn't do anything, like he had visions of his father yelling at him that he was worthless. And he couldn't do this, that, or the third. He needed to be strong. He needed, you know what I'm saying, whether it was sports or something else. And that is an example of how patriarchy is really damaging to boys and men, because that's when it becomes a performance. And I know a lot of people talk about the performance of masculinity.
Yep.
When we're boys, we learn
your worth is defined by your output.
Yes. Yeah. And that's so it's an extremely limiting view of what it is to be human. Like we especially as a black man, like we can't be angry. We can't have certain emotional expressions, and I think for men in general, any emotional acknowledgement is frowned upon at all.
Yep. I mean, it's so crazy too, thinking about what you're saying on two different levels, right? We're not going to get into like the depths of the racial elements to it, but just using that example, right? You go, if your output is what defines you as a man, but you come from any socioeconomic circumstance, whether it be poor, whether it be a byproduct of being a minority, if you come from any disadvantaged socioeconomic background, then you inherently struggle with, on a certain level, the ideology of your ability to provide on some level. So the reality is that that's already a burden that you carry on top of whatever your basic existence is.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that that's used in a way to further, I knew this word was going to come up, to further emasculate men, right? And I don't like that term because of how it's used and what it means. And I thought of this the other day. I can't remember if I mentioned this to you. There isn't an analogous word for effeminate. Like we say effeminate, but it doesn't mean the same thing. It's used in a different context. It's used in reference to a man that's
manifesting what we believe to be
feminine traits, right? But it's not the same thing as when we say emasculate. We mean somebody.
It's visceral.
It's an attack on somebody's manhood, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, oh, you're taking their manhood away or whatever. Some kind of it's like it's seen as a bad thing because you're chopping them down from their patriarchal place of dominance in this structure, and so that it becomes an insult, right? It's an insult. It's a tear down, and there's no such thing the other way around, because I guess it wouldn't make sense in a patriarchal, male dominated society.
I think that you're right, and it's easy for us to say that as two men living our walk. I definitely feel like I have listened to women articulate, again, vocabulary to which you were speaking very definitively. That is very much so the case, right? Emasculate. But the ideology that you're talking about, I have found and heard conversations in circles of women who feel like the lack of ability to embody certain feminine traits, I'm thinking about this. I feel like there is an indictment against the ability to embody certain historically feminine traits. But again, the vocabulary, to your point, I don't think is used the same way.
Yeah.
I think the ideology behind it is the same, but I don't think the vocabulary is.
Yeah.
It's one of the weirdest experiences that happens in my house. Like, I don't feel like my wife needs to be my servant in any capacity, and my wife has some very traditional values. So it's this weird balance of, I don't want you to feel like I'm a burden you have to take care of. At the same time, I don't want to take away the thing that you find that is fulfilling, which is being able to provide certain things in a relationship for your spouse, whether it's cooking for them or that kind of stuff. It's a weird balance.
Yeah, that's a great segue into just the minutia, the real life minutia of these terms and these roles. And I think I've been in a few different relationships, like my marriage first and foremost, but then in relationships since then, and I've reacted negatively to when a woman said, "Oh, you need somebody to take care of you. Oh, you probably need somebody to cook and clean." I'm like, "No, I'm good. Like I'm not a chef by any means, but my kid is fed, and we generally like what I cook is not terrible. Like I'm not like heating up hot pockets every day."
You are.
Appreciate it. So like I like had a negative reaction to a woman saying that, but I've also been in a healthy partnership where, you know, a woman who does tend to does the cook and does, you know, have certain cleaning standards that are different than how I was raised or whatever. Like and having that be a healthy pairing. Like and have that be and it's not from the standpoint of any kind of domination or whatever. It's literally a pairing of skills and expectations and
you find that in that relationship the person is filling the gaps.
Yeah.
It's not so much that you can't do, it's a prioritization. There are only so many hours in a day, so many things you can focus on. So when you find a partner or a significant other that picks up in places where you might otherwise lack, and again, lacking doesn't mean failing. It just means that that's not where you excel.
Yeah.
If you're an honor student, just because you got a B in a class doesn't mean you failed it. But if your partner gets an A in that class, why not let them handle the work associated with that class?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And this is something that I've struggled with in my decolonization and depatriarchal, like my depatriizing. Is that a word? I don't know. I'm gonna make up words. We're gonna make up words here.
Would it be repatriizing because you are redefining?
Oh, you could put it that way too. I was saying I was trying to deconstruct the patriarchal whatever. But anyway, yeah, that could be.
Let's try to make that a thing.
Make it a positive. Yeah, right. In that process, I realized like what was a struggle for me was, you know, we both intellectualize. We both like to know a lot and be smart. We're engineers.
They
and whatnot.
say overthink.
Overthink allegedly. So I, knowing that that's a thing for me, I struggled with times when a woman like definitely like knew way more than me. Like I felt an internal body like reaction to that, and it took me a while to be honest with what that was and realize that that was part of patriarchy, like telling me that I needed to be better than or more intellectual than, and all of that, and that was an unhealthy internal bodily reaction. And I've worked hard to let women lead in places that make sense. Like you said, like if I got to be in this class, you got to A in this class. Like, okay, that's your thing. If I got an A, you got to be like, this is my thing. And having it just be a true legit partnership based on skills and expertise and experience, and have it not be any kind of like, competition or no kind of, whatever. And it took me a long time to get to that point.
It's funny that you say that. Let me ask you this though, right? Do you feel like, not necessarily that you move past it, but do you feel like letting them lead in places that they excel and you may not are associated with some of that historically patriarchal perspective? Like, for instance, installing a garbage disposal. Mm-hmm. If a female significant other, or I don't want to use the word female because I don't want to be disrespectful.
I got you.
If your significant other happens to be better at doing that than you are,
yeah,
how do you think you would process that? Because I'm not saying you've had that circumstance or not. Like, I've had situations, right, in my life where, like, I am the hands-on. My thoughts, my perspectives are very progressive. My skill set is very, I don't want to say archaic, but traditional.
You can fix a car.
I can fix a car. So, like,
you cut the grass.
The point that you're, I do cut the grass. But the point that you're making, right? I look at my own experiences and the places where I have to check myself are on those things that, like, I was raised to do this. I was trained to do this. I know how to do this, and I may be more skilled at doing this than you are, but I have to be open to the possibility that a suggestion that you're making might be applicable.
Yeah.
That's where I struggle.
I feel you, yeah. And I remember a couple examples of that.
Yeah.
But for me to answer your question about the garbage disposal,
yeah,
that's a bad example because I've changed out a garbage disposal a few times. So
what, do you suck at it?
No, I bought ones that didn't work very well or whatever.
I've done like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, like it sucks.
Yeah, you get used to it.
But I hear what you're saying, and I've dated women who like putting stuff together, like furniture or whatever. That's one of those things where it's like a woman buys a thing and a man puts it together. I've dated women where it's like, oh no, this is my thing. I want to hammer the nails. I want to screw the screws, and it's like, okay. So like I don't feel the way about that. Like especially IKEA. Like, you can have all the IKEA assemblies you want, because I hate assembling IKEA stuff. I just hate it. I'll do it. Like, I don't mind, and there's some satisfaction in doing it. But
it's little thought to it.
Yeah. So I think in some of those quote unquote traditional senses, I've had an easier job accepting influence and than others. I think with the intellect thing, that was a struggle for me more than and that was a shock to me. Like, when I really decoded it and figured out what it was and why, I was like, damn, I'm disappointed in myself. But that's what it was. As
your friend, I am telling you that I have no problem believing that.
Gee, thanks.
And it's not, and let me be clear. It's not, I don't see it as a sexist thing. I think that as a self-proclaimed intellectual, you become disappointed in your inability to shed some of those pretexts and pre-thoughts and predispositions that come from having lived the experience that we all have lived, right?
Yeah.
When you become more self-aware, which really is the goal, it hurts. So, like, it hurts, and you should be disappointed in yourself. That is the catalyst to do better.
Yeah, that's fair. And that was the case for me, and I still struggle with it. It's not what I said earlier about, like, it took me a while to get there, is to the realization, and then it's daily work to, like, keep making sure that you're not.
I absolutely hate I fixed it. No, you didn't.
Yeah,
you're good today.
I've been sober for 12 days.
Yeah, exactly. Like I try to tell people, man, it's like you don't fix elements of your personality. You work every day to live the better person you want to be. Yeah. So it's more like being an addict than anything else.
Yeah, and that's what if we use that AA terminology for deconstructing patriarchy, white supremacy, all that kind of thing. Because as a man, and as black men, this is a particular issue within the black community, because yes, we are those being down pressed by white supremacy, but in this case, we are the privileged ones in the sense that we are cisgender heterosexual men, right?
Absolutely.
And so we have to do the work that we're asking white people to do.
Yep.
For our women.
Absolutely.
Right. And for women, for LGBTQIA community, and for ourselves, for real.
I remember intentionally, after listening to things like sexual assault and rape culture, and again, in the most recent days, the era of gender fluidity and the most recent conversations of female empowerment, I remember going back to women I had dated and had intimate relationships with, asking them about that experience, being in a relationship with me.
Yeah.
For perspective.
Yeah.
Like, and it was, most of it was more pleasant than I would have expected. But I feel like without even the desire to want to go back and challenge yourself, how can you really claim to be trying to move forward?
Yeah, no, that's real. And I'm glad you mentioned that. There was a woman I dated when I was separated, getting divorced, and she challenged the hell out of me, and I was not ready. Like, she was talking about male fragility, and I hated the term male fragility because I was being fragile. Like,
suck it up, buddy.
I was literally embodying male fragility in my defensiveness at the use of the term, which I don't know. I don't even know if I could reach out, if I could find this person now, but like I would like to tell her you were absolutely right.
Thank you.
And I apologize for my pushback, but I appreciate what you said because you were right. And I think that's what kind of we're getting into here. Like, if a woman's like, "Oh, I'm a beast changing garbage disposals," like, would your male fragility say, "Oh, no, I got this," even though you know damn well you'd be looking at YouTube for like 5 hours trying to do it? Like that's
I don't know
like
garbage disposal, but other stuff, yeah.
But yeah, so like that's one of those honest conversations we need to have as men. Like, when your body has a reaction to a woman saying something or doing something or being good at something, like, do you feel like, what is your body react? How is your body reacting? Do you feel threatened? Why? And what does this say about your ideas of male-female relationships or masculine-feminine energy?
Look, you can tell I don't do a lot of podcasts. I just keep getting caught up. Like, you're saying things that trigger things in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I literally constantly have the conversation with men, women, whoever. Like, your emotions are a barometer for your actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you feel something, in my opinion, right? When you feel something, that is supposed to give you pause to digest what is making you feel that way. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a negative thing. Good, bad, whatever it is, whenever you are experiencing extreme outside of your steady state, that's something to be understood and acknowledged, particularly before you act upon it. So going back to the point that you were making about, fixing the car or the garbage disposal thing, mm-hmm. I am very much so inclined. I see it all the time. I am very inclined to react and pause very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know me, so
yeah, you do.
I'm quick to react, but hold on, what's going on? Like, I got to think about what I'm feeling or thinking in that moment, because I try not to be misunderstood, but how can I make sure that I'm not being misunderstood if I don't understand myself? Right?
Right. So you have to, so that pause, and that pause is so critical.
Yeah,
I remember my brother, he was talking shit one time. We were driving up to Rhode Island. He was like, he said think twice, speak once.
I
was like, I hated when he said that, but he was
drop
right.
knowledge.
I know, right? My little brother telling me, man, but he was right. And I think, and your approach is very good when you do that. You like taking that pause, and that's a degree of mindfulness to be frank. Like it's observing the emotions and not dispelling them, not sweeping them under the rug, but just letting them be there, letting them float, and be like, okay, this is happening. Mm-hmm. Why is this happening? What externally happened? What internally is happening? And why is there an internal reaction to this thing in this way? Especially for the big ones, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good practice.
It also makes you verbose. When you pause and think about everything all the time, you then find a deeper explanation for any and everything that you do. And the average person says, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. You're wasting time talking about things. And sometimes maybe they're right. Sometimes it's you're wasting time over explaining something that we can move that's not significant enough to afford this time to.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're not. And so, like I said, it's just another way to experience life.
Yeah.
That I'm not gonna say it's right. I'm not gonna say it's wrong. Who knows? It's just life.
All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit and get to a couple of Instagram posts that I came across, and I sent them to you. The first one was posted by Lavishly Brit, who... Here's music. That's loud.
That track goes so hard.
It does, though. That song is fire. But so Lavishly Brit posted a reel that her husband originally posted, but it said, know your position and play it well. And her husband, Daryl Williams, is basically he's shirtless. He's like laying on the floor in a plank basically, and then she gets on his back and he lowers down off the plank down towards the ground, and his two children get on and are bundled up with his wife, and he starts doing push-ups, and he is like, his eyes are dead set like forward, and the camera's off to like the left or the right or whatever. So, and his wife and his kids are like looking at the camera and like looking adorable, and it's amazing. But he's just like, he's ripped and he's just like doing these push-ups, and literally his entire family's on his back. And
yeah, man.
The quote says, know your position and play it well. And this just popped up in my reels. I have no idea how it got to me, but it showed up. And I thought, my initial reaction was that this is part of the problem with our society's ideas of masculinity, because what we are celebrating in this image is a man who, we're obviously highlighting his strength. Dude is ripped. He doesn't have a shirt on. So we're seeing the muscles. We're seeing physical strength. We're seeing eyes dead set on a goal.
Focus.
Yeah, he literally was like focused. He wasn't even looking like, I mean, he's doing push-ups with his family on his back. He can't look at his family, nothing like that. He's looking out externally.
That's a good element. Focused on the external experience, not the family.
Yeah, yeah. And so there was so much imagery that was happening here that I thought was problematic, to be honest. Like, and his wife and the children, they're along for the ride. And I feel like that contributes to the idea that men are providers, but also that they're, so being a provider isn't problematic, but when it's just the way that looked, it looked problematic, because there's an emotional element to being on the bottom of that image. And at some point,
the burden that you carry by having to carry your family on your back is not something that he's expressing.
Yeah, and like there's emotions, there's pain and hurt and tired associated with being in that position, and that image in and of itself did not speak to those pieces, which are very real. And so, and so I pulled back. Well, first of all, I sent it to you, and I remember. So what was your response to it?
You was hot, boy.
I was,
and I think. I think that my initial response to you was like, I feel you, but there are layers to this that I think need to be pulled back. About to say, do you have a message?
Yeah, I got it up right here.
What did
I say? I sent you the post, and I just said agree ? Like, do you agree?
Yeah.
And you were like, not really, but I get the sentiment. And I was like, yeah, I definitely disagree.
Yeah, you was hot, boy, but I was like, I mean, I can't divorce myself from certain foundational elements of my entire ideology.
Yeah.
So I can't act like I don't understand it and that I don't connect with certain elements of it. What do I agree with? I agree with the fact that that is a norm.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the fact that that is how people perceive what their existence is and ought to be. And I agree with the fact that if you're going to walk this life, you have to recognize the people around you. That is the perspective from which they are coming from.
Yeah.
So you may not internally perceive that to be the scope of a male's existence or role or situation, but you have to recognize the world around you does. And what does that mean? And how does that impact your experience?
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. And I think, I guess the reason I reacted so viscerally to it initially is because, and I'm gonna speak for both if it's all right with you. I feel like we both do that to an extent in our own ways.
Absolutely.
Like, and there's this notion of self-sacrifice on the part of the man to, like, oh, you know, whether it's the overtime at work or whatever, it's like some kind of sacrifice for your own pleasures, your own desires to whether it's a financial goal or if it's you know, a protection type thing or the house or whatever, something that we have to do that takes away from the things that we'd rather be doing. Because I mean, being an adult is that anyway, but there's a lack
of blows, the pain.
Yeah, there's a lack of emotional check-in and self-care when this goes haywire. I guess maybe that's the point. Yeah.
So, and it's so interesting even that you delve into it like that, because here's where we get into where I align with the historical ideology of masculinity, but at the core, divorce myself from it as being a specifically male trait.
Okay.
I absolutely align with the ideology of logos versus ethos, right? Mm-hmm. So I absolutely believe that when you operate more predominantly out of the logical sphere of thought, you inherently prioritize certain things. Emotions tend to fall to a lesser priority, not in the sense of it not having significance, but the immediacy with which it needs to be addressed and dealt with are not as tangible to one's existence, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of that tends to show where the divide is in actions, behaviors, and perspectives, right? From a male-female is typically the way it is articulated. But when you look at homosexual relationships, right? You go, well, somebody has to play the male and somebody has to play the female. But the reality is that it's not that somebody has to play the male and play the female. And in a heterosexual relationship, it's not even that male and female have to be associated with roles. It's somebody has to operate out of a logical space, and somebody should on a certain level predominantly operate out of an emotional space, because the combination of the two allow for balance to exist for the sustainment of that pairing and for the sustainment and the perpetuation of one's legacy, right? So your children. So the catch is, going back to the point of masculinity, right? I go, playing either one of those parts isn't male-female. So it's not necessarily masculine and non-masculine, or masculine and feminine, excuse me. The reality is somebody has to assume one of these roles. And more often than not, if you operate out of this space, you will inherently, associatively carry forth certain traits.
Yeah.
There's give and take in both sides in both directions, There is no absolute, this is the 100% divide all the time. Mm-hmm. But there is a predominance, a disposition towards a certain train of thought and action, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's true.
It's a perspective. That's the way I perceive, right? And again, my perception is purely rooted in the way our society exists.
Yeah.
That may not be as true, hold as true in a different environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to think through that a little bit more. And I think the example of a homosexual couple is an interesting one, because that's where... So obviously we typically, out of patriarchal laziness, we assign masculine and logos thinking to the man, to the one with the penis, and then the ethos and the feminine traits are the one with the vagina. And it's like, well, in a homosexual relationship, it's like, oh my gosh, how is this gonna work?
Right.
But it's like, it's literally just however the energies come together. Like, if this partnership is together, there must be a blend of the energies that works for them. And it really, that's as far as it needs to go. Like,
relationships in general are byproduct of energy. Like,
yeah.
Yo, I got one for you too. And I'm still living in real time right now.
Yeah.
Right? So hopefully my wife won't listen to this until long after. So there will be time to digest. But like, so right now, the thing from this past weekend was drapes in the house. Mm-hmm. She started this project like in the middle of the summer, and she bought the drapes. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. You want to put up drapes? I don't care. Like, I don't care. Fast forward to this weekend. So the task for Saturday, one of the things was we're going to Home Depot so we can go get these hang rods so we can hang these drapes. Okay, whatever. So we go to Home Depot. We get the hang rods, then we get home, and it's like, well, I'm not doing it today. I might do it tomorrow. Okay, so wake up the next day, Sunday, wake up, and I'm just like, there's nothing in me that wants to hang these drapes.
Come on, that's not your life purpose.
And
come on, man.
She woke up and went and ran some errands. I woke up and, fed the 5-year-old, and we were just like in the house. And I started pissing around with some other project. And she started hanging the drapes. She started putting up the hang rods. And I was like, first I was mad because I was like, I don't want to do this. And now she's doing it, and I should be doing it with her, and I need to help her do this. And I was like, but I don't want to do this. Like, there's nothing in me that wants to hang these drapes.
Yeah.
And I found an excuse to go. I mean, I say found an excuse, but it was something that actually happened real time. And there's an excuse to go, like, get something to my sister, so I go drop something off of her and kill a little bit of time there. By the time I come back, she's got most of the ones on the first floor done, and I feel bad kind of because I left her to do it. But the other thing is, like, I absolutely would have done it. I would have forced myself to do it at some point. But over the course of the time that I spent away, you know what I realized? I hate drapes. And it's funny, right? Like, I genuinely don't like them. Like, as a design
just
feature,
as an aesthetic, yeah.
That's all they are to me.
Yeah.
They're just an aesthetic feature. So to me, it's like it's another hurdle I have to jump to open the blinds, right?
Which are functional.
You're
such an engineer.
I am. So, but I kept saying this is something she wants, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Now, did she feel the kind of way that she was putting it up? Or did she was the expectation that you would put them up, or that you would do them together, or what were the expectations there?
You know what's so funny? I'm slowly learning to stop guessing what she's thinking.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Very slowly. Don't get it twisted. My natural inclination is to be like, I see what you're doing there. I literally was like, she's mad. She looks mad. She's probably mad. You know what? Until she says she's mad, I need to let this go, and she's not mad. And I still think that she probably was annoyed, but she never confronted me about it. And her energy kind of shifted as it felt like her energy shifted as the day went on.
Shifted
too.
Positively? Okay.
So by the time we got to the end of the day, it was like just the day had come and gone. I mean, we still
Did you thank her for doing the drapes?
I applauded the job she did.
I'll allow it.
I tried to give positive reinforcement towards what had taken place.
Okay, I'll allow it. Okay,
but again, not I say but not as a contrast, but to kind of refer back to my perspective, I applauded myself for figuring out why
you didn't want to do it.
I didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
and I mean, we still got a crap ton of drapes that I'm gonna.
Are you
probably put up? So here's the funny thing. Now I'm in a place where I'm like, I don't want her to feel like I'm going to take over. So it's bad. That's actually what gets me in the most trouble, though. Not necessarily that thought, but the incessant questions. That's what gets me in it makes it seem like I can't function on my own. But the reality is that I ask questions because 90% of the times I don't care. So I can literally not care. But 90% of the times, I feel like you're going to say something to me about it. So you seem to care. So I am going to ask,
so what do you want? Get this. Yeah,
what do you want so that I can
execute the plan play my part.
But please believe, the things that I don't care, the things that I feel some kind of way about,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was that dance, which I think kind of not to kind of pull us back to the topic, right? That's another one of those elements of perceived masculinity.
Yeah,
that I think we, like you and I specifically, oftentimes kind of delve into. I feel like we're good. I can't speak for you, but I feel like we're good sounding boards for each other because
for sure.
There's an emotional disconnected element when you're not in it. So when the person says, man, and this just pissed me off, and it's like, yeah, you're being a dick, right?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I am. Yeah, I am being a dick. You're right. you know, that's...
Yeah, you told me that many times. I remember.
I've heard it a couple times.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we are good sounding boards, and I think to our credit, we try to relay stories. We don't really tell stories in a way that's like, oh, think negatively about my wife or my partner. We don't tell stories in that way. We're like, here's the situation. Like, am I tripping? Or like, how do you read this? And sometimes it's like, yeah, that's kind of whack. Or sometimes it's like, man, that's you.
You, sir, have recently, and I think this has been your year to tell me that I'm acting like an ass. And I've been like, yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, shoot, last year was, I think we both had our share of being the jerk last year, I feel like. But in another IG post that I sent to you, the brother Kyer Gaines, I realized I followed this dude for I guess my entire 14 months on Instagram. He was one of the first people that I found and was like, oh, I mess with this dude.
Yeah.
I think it's Kyer Gaines, but he's like, everybody probably knows who he is. He has a lot of positive, messages and videos about like being a father, being a husband, and stuff like that. And he seems to be a very
uplifting spirit.
Yeah, and he takes a very non-patriarchal, stereotypical patriarchal way of addressing fatherhood and parent and being a husband, being a partner. And so not long after the post that we just talked about, he posted like a time lapse joint of him helping his pregnant wife with her hair, and his caption was, "Nothing on the internet annoys me more than manhood being reduced to paying bills and changing tires. At the intersection of intimacy and partnership, none of that stuff matters. Wish I knew that I'd have to be a nurse, advisor, negotiator, mender of relationships, thought leader, diligent assistant, motivational speaker, stylist, hairdresser. I could go on for hours. Had I known this earlier, I could have greeted these duties with less resistance and more understanding years ago." I think that post is a healthy, fuller depiction of what being a partner is in general. But for him as a man to show this intimate level of the quote unquote softer side of being a male partner to a woman partner or whatever. Like I just thought that was a very beautiful post, and it felt very oppositional to the first one we discussed.
It's so funny to me because, like, if you talk to me, like if anybody talks to me, I don't hide things per se. Like I try to be pretty transparent about my life, probably to a fault. So what makes me laugh about this whole thing is that you send me that post, and I'm like, I've done my wife's hair before. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, in my house, I'm the one who washes hair.
Yeah.
Like if you ask my teenage daughter today, right now, if she had to choose who was going to wash her hair, me or her mother, hands down she'd pick me. I'm the one who washes hair.
Fair enough.
Have I styled hair before? Yes, I suck at it. It's a skill I haven't taken time to develop.
Yet.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Because but there's
somebody,
it's because of the circumstance, right?
There's somebody there who's better than you. So why? Yeah,
why develop that skill?
Right. If you were drumming and you got a guitar player, why you got to learn guitar?
And honestly, and I laugh at this because my wife, who is all over the place, like that is a cornerstone difference between her and I. Mm-hmm. Like she believes more often than not that if she can do a task, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at her like, why? If that's not the thing you're good at, unless you absolutely need it done right now and you have to do it yourself, I'll do it when I get to it. Like, or let me know that it is a high enough priority that I need to
drop things
and do it.
Yeah.
But like you jumping in to do something just to get it done, now I'm telling you that's how I feel and think about it. She may very well have great reasons for why she does and feels the way that she does. And oftentimes her process works out very well.
Yeah.
For all of those parties involved in my house. But I still feel the way that I do about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's real. Yes, I think I mean your own lived experience is very much, you know, both of those really, like, because I think that's the beauty of this conversation and the beauty of the reality of where we are right now in this country, or just, I don't know, maybe it's just you and me, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's moments or seasons where we're Darryl Williams and we doing push-ups and the family's on our back and we just grinding, and that's just what it is. And then there's other moments where, you know, we're doing hair and we're like, you know, being the mentor, being the relationship manager, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe as long as there's a balance there, maybe that's okay. Cause I don't mean to say that the push-up joint is bad. Cause I definitely feel like as men, or as an adult, like you have to pick people up. You have to support people, whether it's your own children, a partner, family members, whatever. Like there's a reality to just being responsible for you and for those you love and that type of thing. So my initial visceral reaction to that, I think I've backed off from a little bit because as long as there's a balance, and I guess the two posts together kind of, I feel better about the two of them, I guess. So
here's the thing about it here's how I perceive it, right? The idea that either of the two is good or bad is personal. If you live and exist in a relationship where it is healthy for the both of you all to operate in those modes, then you have a healthy balance.
Right.
You have to be honest about who and what you are and accept what that is so that you can truly assess if the reality you're living is the best version of your life that you could live at that given moment. And because of that, I know I'm real general here, but as it specifically applies to that situation, if that is what you embody, the man carrying the weight of the family, there are other parts to that scene. That scene doesn't give any insight into what the wife carries and does.
That's true.
That's a very specific targeted image.
Yeah, it is.
And so I don't think that it's wrong. I just think that perspective solidifies the significance of the statement.
So what if we flip that joint around and I'm just trying to think of like
it's the fixing a plate metaphor.
Okay, right. So the man is sitting at the table, woman's finishing up cooking, and fix the man a plate. And what if the post was, know your position and play it well? Like, how would people respond to that?
I've seen people respond very viscerally to that.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I've heard women respond very viscerally.
I've responded viscerally to that notion. I'm like, no, I can get my own plate. Like, that's cool. But that was before I've been in a relationship where there's a healthy enough balance where that can be, where that's acceptable, and that's where the balance in the relationship makes that make sense.
It's
and not feel oppressive.
I was about to say, because it's the entitlement of it all, right?
Yeah.
That's what you don't like about it.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that she's willing to serve a meal. I mean, hell, you get served a meal when you go to a restaurant.
That's true.
What about this is so visceral? Oh, I'll tell you one thing, though, but if you go to a restaurant and the people sitting at the table next to you, if the guy acts like a jerk towards his waiter, you feel visceral about that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So what about the circumstance? See, that's the other problem with our society. And I know I'm going broad here, but it goes back to the whole masculine thing in and of itself. We spend so much time looking at snapshots of existence that nobody has the full context of anything. So the reality is that you're passing judgment on a limited scope.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm always curious. Again, my natural inclination is to want to know, why are we even here? How do we get here? What are we talking about? What are we really discussing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think everybody should think through the answer to that question, including myself. Because if you again, getting back to what you said, if you have that emotional reaction, pause. That's the moment to pause. And so when I've had visceral reactions to the idea of me sitting at a table and having a woman fix my plate, like, I used to have a visceral reaction to that, and I got to the point where I accepted that, and that was okay.
And make no mistake, I had the exact same circumstance and situation. Mine was, I don't know if yours was like in a home setting. Mm-hmm. Mine was that in a public setting. We was at a church. And she got pissed because I got up and went about my business to make my own plate. And I'm just like, I don't know these people. They don't know us. And I'm not going to be some image of a lazy dude sitting around expecting his woman to take care of it. So that's my visceral reaction. Yeah. And I had to learn to just be like, which costs more? Me letting go of my feelings on this, or her letting go of hers?
Yeah.
And I felt like for that particular thing, I felt like, I'm worried about the imagery of it more so than the practicality of it.
Yeah.
And realistically, whether I get it or whether she gets it, who cares? From me.
Yeah.
But if it matters for her, particularly because the community we were in was more
as the
her community.
Yeah. Oh, right. So just appropriate for the context, right?
Appropriate for the context.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, all right, we in a church that I'm kind of becoming a part of, sort of, through my relationship with you. So I gotta be mindful about what your norms are.
Yeah. And what helped me get around that was just the idea that was a little bit of affirmation. It was like, look, you do these things and you don't question.
Ooh, I see.
You don't question your support of me in these ways. So when it comes to me and I'm cooking dinner and I fix your plate, I don't question that because I receive unquestioning support from you in these ways. So like, this is a way that I can support you. And my partner was just basically like,
it's fulfilling.
This is the reciprocal nature of a healthy balance of service and energy and pouring into each other. And I was just like, well, damn, if you put it that way, okay.
And you know what? It's so interesting too, because coming up in an era of the projected ideology of independent woman right? The necessity for that, because we come from a generation where that needed to happen because the society wasn't embracing that, right?
Yeah.
The problem, quote unquote, and I'm not going to say problem, but a symptom that came out of that shift societally was this ideology of independence in the sense of not needing, right? Because nobody on the face of this earth is solely independent.
Right.
So the premise that you are living out of is already contrary to your existence.
Rooted in capitalism. Sorry.
I know, right? So what bothered me about it is this idea that me as a man affirming I don't need a woman. Now, patriarchy makes it easier for me to live that space without conflict because I'm supposed to be able to provide, to fill all the boxes, right? That pertains to survival. But the catch is, for a lot of women, based on the patriarchal society, that was never a reality.
Yeah.
As the society told it. So I don't knock the ideology of independence. But what I do knock is people who haven't taken the time to walk that out a little further. I don't need another person to live, but I need another person to live the best I can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would expand that even further. We definitely need another person. And I think that, you know how people say it takes a village to raise a child?
Yep.
I think it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to be an adult. And it takes a village to be a village.
Yeah.
And like, I just feel like that's just a true statement. And I think I think the intensity with which we have these conversations is because we are hinging the rearing of children on two people.
Yeah.
If we're lucky. Sometimes it's one person.
Yeah.
Right? And so the pressure is just immense. Where if we really just relaxed and truly let villages raise our children and really be humble enough to like be okay with that, like that takes a little bit of the burden off of this. Because I'll tell you an example. Like Kenny, I gotta have Kenny on the show too at some point.
Oh yeah.
There was a time where we took our kids to a baseball game and you know, my boy had like this he like his eye was hurting or something like that, and he was like really like having a reaction to it, and it was beyond the point where it was like, you should be fine. Like, I don't think this is a physical thing at this point. I think something's like you're just like you're fixating on this thing, but I think you're okay. And my version of trying to like talk him down didn't work, but Kenny like picked him up and just like physically like embraced him in a way that like helped. You know what I'm saying?
That's
and so
real.
like, here are two men with a total of 4 children, you know, in this baseball game, and his approach worked in that moment. And like, as a dad, I could have been like, oh,
get your hands off him.
Don't touch my kid, and you know, whatever. But like, nah, like we this is a tribe. You know, we've been to your house plenty of times. You know, whatever. Like, if you or Megan had anything to do, like needed to do anything with Avery to like fix the situation or whatever, by all means. Like, and part of the reason why I wanted to be more intentional about going to your house more often is because of some of the things I was hearing from him about masculinity, about men and stuff like that. At the barbershop, he was uncomfortable. I was like, whoa, nah, cool. So like, you know, and of course COVID, you know, was a big reason.
It made it hard for all kids.
Yeah, COVID just is going to have a number of effects just because of the lack of socialization, whatever. But anyway, like, it just humbling ourselves into the idea that it takes a village and welcoming other people's energies and welcoming that balance that a lot of adults provide to children. I think it helps.
I feel like humility in certain levels is a holistic embodiment of somebody who knows what empathy is, right? So the thing that I actually say, my personal saying is, a lot of people can have sympathy, but a lot of people don't understand empathy. They can see your circumstance and they can see where it sucks. They cannot connect with. They are not willing to take the time to put themselves in your shoes, living your life the way you're living it in that moment, and all the things going on around you that could possibly exacerbate the significance of this one moment, one way or another.
Yeah. As you're saying that, you're showing the difference between sympathizing and empathizing. That actually brings me to one of the things I wanted to bring up at the end here is kind of as we rediscovering masculinity, right? We talked about our definitions. We've worked through just like our lived experiences in relationships, raising kids, stuff like that. In The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, which I know we both read last year, Bell Hooks defined feminist masculinity's chief constituents as integrity, self-love, emotional awareness, assertiveness, relational skill, including the capacity to be empathetic, autonomous, and connected, which is crazy because so many of those things are divergent. Like, autonomous and connected are two different ideas.
Yeah.
But there's a degree of wisdom that's needed to know when to do each one, right? And I think that's a beautiful definition or beautiful starting point, I guess, to redefine masculinity and focus our energies in our 12-step program, against patriarchy towards something like that, maybe.
Right.
Right.
No, I agree, and I appreciate the ideology. You know what's so funny? And again, maybe this is me pulling to a different place. Going back to your definitions between male and man, I feel like if one focuses on those particular elements as defined as what masculinity is, the natural male elements of you, i.e. the testosterone and the elements biologically that make us men, which I do believe to a certain degree impact us psychologically, will help healthily define what it is to be a man. So it's the idea of focus on these goals, these guidelines, these principles of life, and your natural existence will define what it is to be a man.
So let me see if I understand. So you're saying like with these principles, with these kind of, if you think of it as like a star to work through, your life experience pointing in this direction will inform you of what the meaning the meaning will fill in. The meaning will be filled in through the experiences as you're going towards these principles. Yeah. Okay.
It's literally, you will look back on your life feeling that you were a man who lived your life, your masculine life. Right?
Yeah.
You don't feel like you did not live in a space of you don't feel like any element of your existence was lacking. And masculinity is only one element of our existence.
Yeah. We got to wrap it up at some point.
Yeah, I know, right?
Whenever I have a guest, I like to close with a couple of questions for you. One,
I don't answer questions. I was like, go ahead.
One question is, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Time travel.
Time travel.
And I mean time travel like back up my existence. Not take me now and go, jump to another point in time. I look at people in life, and I hate when people, I'm some of the experiences that I've had, and that's what makes me who I am. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not signing up for trauma if I don't have to. Why not correct the things, the shortcomings, the struggles, the failures, with the knowledge that I have now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point. People act like going back and change. You want to go back because you know better. That's the point.
Yeah. So okay. So see, this is a whole nother show right here. Because so your goal in time travel is to make corrections, not to
relive the
not to relive, but you would actually make changes.
Yeah. Okay. I hate that. I genuinely hate that ideology. It's like I would do nothing differently. You're ridiculous. I would do tons of things differently.
I mean, yeah. You know what's crazy? My boy was talking to his best friend, and his friend's black too, and well, this will become evident in about 10 seconds. They were looking at would you rather, and the question was, would you rather meet your great-great-grandparents or your great-great-grandkids? And his friend was like, oh, I'd rather meet my great-great-grandkids because I wouldn't want to be a slave.
Yep.
And I was like, damn, yo, like y'all are really having this conversation, and y'all are like 8 and 9 years old, and like y'all get it. And I was like, honestly, I would like to meet my ancestors because I feel like there's just a lot to learn from them. By the way, their great-great-grandparents would not have been enslaved, I don't think, because that would have been like the 1900s, I feel like, depending on age.
Funny story. So my great-great-grandparents would have been, and I know that because I know my great-grandmother passed a year after I got married.
Wow.
So like you get what I'm saying?
That's a beautiful thing.
So like her parents were slaves.
Wow. No, that's crazy. All right, so time travel, got it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the latest book that you read or the latest book that you recommend?
Oh man, unfortunately, I have to actually look that up.
Cool.
The book I always recommend you put me on to, which maybe I'm getting you in trouble.
Which one?
Sex at Dawn.
Oh, snap.
I love that book.
Oh, that's a great book. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I love that book. Dark Money.
Ooh. Okay.
That was the last thing I was reading. So it was Dark Money. It was the hidden history of the billionaires behind the rise of the radical right.
That sounds like something I might want to read. Just to
all about the Koch brothers. It's some fun shit.
Snap.
It's crazy.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I'll check that out. All right, last question. What song are you rocking to right now?
Ooh. Anything Tobe Nwigwe.
Yeah, he's a beast. I told you I saw him live, right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, that show was lit, man.
Like that, his station is what stays in. Oh man, now I messed up. Tobe and Silk Sonic.
Oh, Silk Sonic.
Yeah, those are the only two stations that like I'm bumping on my Pandora in the car. And yes, it's Pandora, so I don't know if people hate or love Pandora, but that's what I'm using.
That's what's up. So I guess the last real question is, if you want to put any information out about you, what you do, anything, how people can get at you, now's your opportunity to do that if you so choose.
So I'm a sociable guy. So you can hit me up on Instagram. I believe it's I'm just saying 86. Saying is SAYIN. Yeah.
All right, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
because that sounded confusing.
I'm just saying 86. It's the same thing with my Twitter. I don't have an 86. I'm just saying. So I'm debating on whether I want to put the ad out there for the little barbecue joint.
Why not?
So I'm in between, right? I'm in between doing private pop-up shops and stuff like that for barbecue business. I was selling smoked goods. So everything. I was doing salmon, chicken, brisket. People love the brisket. What else? Ribs. I did pork ribs. I did pork shoulders, that pulled pork, all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So the barbecue business, that's Daddy Time Smokehouse. That's my Instagram.
That's what's up.
So, yeah, man.
Cool. Yeah, well, appreciate you joining me on the show. It was a pleasure having this conversation. I feel like we've had this conversation a lot of times over years. We just actually recorded it. Right.
Yeah. Nah.
So, I didn't even mention, we were in a band together too.
Oh, yeah. 10 Righteous Minds.
Yeah, what? Man. We used to practice in this here basement, you know.
Man.
Playing music and stuff. Man, we was in jazz band in high school, man.
Jeez.
We go way back. We go way, way back.
Man, 10RM got me on U Street. It got us performing, opening some folks. It was... We opened for Dead Prez. We one of the groups to open for Dead Prez.
We played some things. For sure.
Life lived, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but anyway, thank you for joining me on this. And appreciate your thoughts and your wisdom on this conversation and this topic. We'll probably revisit it again at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
Or even hit another topic altogether.
Yeah, I want to do this with women.
Yeah, for sure. Let's
Absolutely.
do it. That's a great idea. All right, y'all. That's the show. As always, you can get at me on Instagram at RealDadult. That's RealDadult. I look forward to hearing any feedback you have on this episode or prior episodes. Of course, if you have any ideas for any future episodes, you can also let me know about that as well. I hope to catch you here next time. Until then, be safe, be well, peace.